Rob Vino of Rob Vino Sports and SportsMemo.com here to take a look at the NFC Championship game Sunday, January 24th. Right now, as we speak, we've seen this line bouncing back and forth here, Arizona and Carolina. Right now, seems to be some steam on the Carolina Panthers. They opened 3 minus 12, and that line has going up with the VIG is going up, the VIG is going back down, the VIG is going up, the VIG is going back down. But right now, we're seeing a spike. Nobody coming off of the three, but the price you have to pay to lay the three continues to get larger. Right now, we see anywhere from 3 minus 15 cents, which was the original opener, or close to the original opener, all the way up to 3 minus 23 cents. Once again, depending upon where you shop, either offshore or in Las Vegas. There is one spot looking at here, South Point Casinos, where you can still get that solid three. If you like Carolina, as always, best advice, lay as little as you can. So look for the best VIG available if you're shopping out there today for this game. But right now it looks like there's some steam coming in as far as the VIG rising on the Carolina Panthers. Total was 47 on the opener, got as high as 48. It's really come back down now to 47, and then we see a little bump in some places to 47.5. So once again, if you're going to shop it, depending upon which side you're on in this game, the numbers that we're dealing with today in each game are key, critical key numbers. So you want to be on the good side of it. Shop around, get the best number. If you like over in the Carolina-Arizona game, get the 47s. I mean, at least earn yourself the push on a 27-20 game or 24-23 game. If you like the under, go grab the 47.5 and win yourself, cash a ticket on a 27-20 or a 24-23 style game. But we do see those numbers almost equally distributed amongst books in Las Vegas and offshore spots. Let's get to the fundamentals of this game. Kind of like the Panthers in this one. Have to admit that in my mind, the top fundamental matchup, the most significant fundamental matchup in this game is going to be at the line of scrimmage. For anybody who watched last week, we saw Green Bay and their defensive front absolutely torture Carson Palmer in that contest. The Arizona offensive line just didn't hold up against Green Bay's pass rush. Palmer was hit quite a bit, hurried quite a bit, under pressure constantly throughout that game. He made a couple of poor decisions due to the pressure. And Carolina, certainly, we saw their defensive front manhandle Seattle, at least significantly for the first half of the game last week. Their defense was all over Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, a much more mobile quarterback than Carson Palmer is. So certainly, the Carolina defensive front, in my mind, earns a significant advantage over that Arizona protection unit. I don't expect Arizona to be able to run the ball very well into the middle of that Carolina defense, which is very stiff. I think if you're Bruce Arians in this contest, and I wouldn't suggest abandoning the run altogether, but I think they're going to have to find creative ways to establish their running game. And to me, when you have Andre Ellington, the type of receiver that he is in open space out of the backfield, use it as part of the running game. When you have David Johnson, I know he ran well for a few weeks heading into last week where he really got shut down, but David Johnson's a good pass catcher out of the backfield. You have to use him as well. I think that for Arizona, a game plan should be devised to throw the ball to the backs, use the short passing game to back that Carolina pressure off just a little bit. Lots of screens, maybe even with the wide receivers, we'll see slip screens, bubble screens, those types of things to specifically hinder the pressure of the Carolina Panthers here. Otherwise, I think Carolina, if they can just put their hands in the dirt and go get them, they're going to go get them. And Arizona could be in for a long day offensively against this Carolina Panther defense. Josh Norman has made his name as a shutdown cornerback in the league this year. And last week, A very hot Doug Baldwin, wide receiver for Seattle, was pretty much taken out of that contest, and it left room for, as it always does, when you have one corner who can take away half the field or take away a top receiver, it leaves the door wide open for your number 2 and number 3 wide receivers to have big days. And in the case of the Seattle Seahawks, second half really did bring about big days, even late second quarter. But we saw Tyler Lockett, Jermaine Kearse, the 2 and 3 wide receivers for the Seattle Seahawks, have huge days last week since Baldwin was watched, or at least he was the focal point of the Carolina defense. You can expect that same thing to apply here today. Larry Fitzgerald, off of the game he had last week, will be the focal point of the Carolina defense. Certainly he'll be watched by Josh Norman for a greater part of this contest. It leaves the door open for Michael Floyd, for John Brown, and those guys are very, very capable. Michael Floyd and John Brown can do some damage. Remember, Carolina's defensive secondary isn't without its troubles, and Seattle certainly exploited it once they woke up second half last week. But you have Charles Peanut Tillman out for the playoffs, Ben Wickery out for the playoffs, and aside from Josh Norman, not a lot of good cover people back there. So Carolina does rely on its pressure. They rely on the great play of their linebacking core. We saw Luke Kuechly take one back for a touchdown last week, pick 6. So I think you'd have to expect Arizona to maybe look away from Fitzgerald a little bit. I'm not so sure that Bruce Arians isn't just hard-headed enough to try and force the ball into Fitzgerald during this game, which probably isn't the best idea, but I'm sure they'll try it. He does have that I'm not afraid of anything mentality. But boy, it does open the door. With Josh Norman out there for Carolina, and as good as he's been against top-notch wide receivers all season long, it does open the door for Michael Floyd. It does open the door for John Brown. If Carson Palmer can be protected to have a big game. If you look at the other side of the coin here, the Carolina offense against the Arizona defense, boy, oh boy, I really think that you have to take a look at this Carolina offense and what they might be able to do against the Arizona defense. Remember, last week, Green Bay did have key components of their offensive line return, and it helped Aaron Rodgers out significantly with the protection. Arizona really didn't bother him as much as the Green Bay pass rush bothered Carson Palmer. So the offensive line play was there. But I think what's significant here is that Green Bay played without their top wide receivers, all 3 of them. If you go back to Jordy Nelson and then say, you're without Jordy Nelson, lost Randall Cobb during the game, didn't have Adams in that game, they worked with their 4 and 5 wide receivers. Jared Abbrederis out of Wisconsin. They worked with Jeff Janis, the number 5 wide receiver. And those 2 guys were able at key times in that ball game to find themselves wide open against that Arizona pass defense. I think the loss of Tyrann Mathieu has been huge. If you just go back and look at the last couple of games that Arizona has played, the regular season finale against Seattle where they lost at home 36-6, and then that game last week, Arizona's got issues in that defensive backfield. We see Patrick Peterson out there. He did take one back for a touchdown that was called back due to penalty, but boy, on those Hail Mary passes, nowhere to be found on the second one, especially the one that went for the touchdown. Their defensive backfield play was horrendous against Green Bay's 4 and 5 wide receivers. Ted Ginn Jr., Jericho Cotchery, Greg Olsen. I know they're not the biggest household names out there in the NFL right now where receivers are concerned, but these guys are very, very capable. And the way Cam Newton is throwing the football right now, their passing game, and in particular with the protection that Cam Newton gets from his offensive line, if Green Bay's offensive line could protect Rodgers last week, Carolina's offensive line should be able to protect here. Cam Newton's going to have some time to throw the football, and he should find open wide receivers. Arizona's got significant problems, I think, in their pass defense from what we've seen the last 2 weeks. Tyrann Mathieu, a very, very key loss in that defensive secondary for the Cardinals. Arizona's also going to have to deal with Cam Newton running the football. You have to, go through your work week learning how to defend read option stuff. Um, Much has been made out of Arizona coming here last year with Ryan Lindley at quarterback, and this could be a revenge contest. I just don't know that I see it that way. In my mind, as we look at it right now, Carolina is a good football team, and probably the biggest edge I can see, or they have edges. I shouldn't just say edge, but the biggest edges that they have over this Arizona team right now are on both sides of the line. They're a better offensive line, they're a better defensive line, and the secondary, which is their weakness, isn't really weaker than Arizona's from what I see. So Carolina, where you could expose them, they could expose Arizona right back. I think this game will be won in the trenches. Carolina's the better team. Throw in the home field. I like them in this spot, but I think I might like them even more in the first half. When you look at how you want to play this game, Carolina first half has really been a dynamite way to go so far this season. This team is 13-4 against the spread in the first half this season. They have just jumped out to incredible leads over teams, gotten up quickly in some instances, and recently against the Giants and against Seattle have had to hang on for victories. However, the first half numbers overall, if you just take an average of what they've defeated teams by in the first half, Carolina has outscored their opponents by 10.4 points per game this season in the first half. You can find them as low as 1.5 for the first half in this contest, anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5. So if they're up by a field goal at halftime, you're going to cash a ticket here. But recently, if you just go through their scores, starting back with Seattle, 31-0 at halftime. Against Tampa Bay, 24-3 at halftime. Against Atlanta, they were tied 7-7, did not cover that one. But then against the Giants, 21-7 halftime lead. Against Atlanta, 28-0 halftime lead. Against Dallas, 23-3 halftime lead. Every single game that the Carolina Panthers covered this season, where they were the straight up leader at halftime, they led by more than 3 points. So to only have to lay 1.5 or 2.5, I think that's probably the way to go here. I would have a first half play on Carolina as the main play here, and probably a little backing on the game minus the 3 points. 3 always a key number. You're a little more fearful of that, but I think laying under a field goal in the first half probably the way to go in this one. One more time as we speak, point spread on this game moving upward in favor of the Carolina Panthers. A real surge even during this analysis of the game. Now across the board we see 3 minus 25, even as high as 3 minus 28. So there is a surge of Carolina money coming in right now. If you like the Panthers, it's recommended that you play them currently, because the 3.5s, the way this thing is pushing, the 3.5s may be coming within the next, inside the next hour for sure. So once again, recommendation here is going to be Carolina first half minus the 1.5. Shop for the best number. Like I say, there's anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5 out there. Try and get the best 1.5, but anything under a field goal I think is safe.